Hello, I'm not John Green, and this is not Crash Course European History. We open on a continent drowning in constant, unrelenting chaos. In fact, it's difficult to understand the sheer level of disorder plaguing European society. But in less than 3 decades, a French king was beheaded. A man who initially opposed the death penalty created a committee of public safety so humane, enlightened, and true to both their values and their committee's name that it took great care to publicly behead 40,000 members of the public. A military hero took over much of Europe, creating the largest empire since the Romans, putting his own brothers on the thrones of other countries, getting exiled to an island only to make an escape and take over for another 100 days. And there was a 15-year of mass international war that led to about 50 million deaths and a lot of economic and material destruction, as wars tend to do. It is important to understand that conservatism originated as a response to the chaos of the French Revolution and continued as that chaos continued. Edmund Burke, the English thinker credited with founding conservatism, said in his 1790 Reflections on the Revolution in France, "Rage and frenzy will pull down more in a half an hour than prudence, deliberation, and foresight can build up in 100 years. As the quote suggests, one key tenet of conservatism was the preservation of existing institutions, a logical belief, since tearing them down had been proven to lead to cults of reason and committees of public safety. In 1814, this conservatism took form in the Congress of Vienna, in which quadruple alliance states convened to bring much-needed pragmatism to Europe. It was led by the brilliant Clemens von Metternich, who had seen the selfish, erroneous nature of human beings released through revolution and worked tirelessly to establish a peaceful balance of power and prevent any more bloodshed, suffering, and international war. And the revolutionary fervor did spread with astonishing speed, not just during the French Revolution, but also in 1830 and 1848. Metternich is famous for saying, "When Paris sneezes, all Europe catches cold," and his caution is well placed, as one should fear anything that spreads with contagious diffusion, even if it's just metaphorical rhinovirus. I have no idea what rhinovirus is. Sorry. Annalie informs me that rhinovirus is the predominant cause of the common cold. And also that I ruined her witty line. Sorry. Metternich and the conservatives were up against a rather numerous group of other isms, who conspire with each other and against each other in various nuanced manners. There were the romantics, the hopelessly melodramatic poets with a worrisome opioid addiction, and the utopian socialists, daydreamers whose grand yet fundamentally infeasible plots did little but fuel their own fanciful revere. Annalie informs me that it's pronounced reverie. Then there were the liberals and socialists, violent chaos worshippers who could make kings abdicate, but so lacking in organizational skills and in such disagreement over the details of the change they wanted that they reliably failed to have a successful revolution. And the industrialists, whose lack of foresight threw society into complete structural upheaval, and finally the nationalists, who threatened to completely fragment the multi-ethnic empires of Europe, and whom Metternich particularly resented accordingly. The conservatives, however, were incredibly successful. They managed to settle matters amongst themselves during the Congress of Vienna and a series of agreements, and effectively prevented A, another large-scale international war, and B, any one state from becoming too powerful for the next 100 years. The war that broke that peace, of course, was World War I, which brings us back to the nationalists, who unabashedly sponsored not one, but 2 world wars. We tend to see the conservatives as an evil force of society's most privileged and stood in the way of progress that was being driven by a united coalition of the people. And while it was primarily the upper class who supported the conservatives, even the peasants joined them during some of the 1848 revolutions. It is not as if the conservatives were against the united front of the rest of the ideologies. The romantics, when they weren't busy with another love affair or supporting the nationalists, actually sometimes got along with the conservatives because of their shared admiration of the past. Even the liberals, who would occasionally team up with the conservatives because they so feared the radicals, and there was lots of tensions amongst the other isms as well. Society is a complicated interplay between freedom and order, and while conservatism of the 19th century Europe may have been on the wrong side of history, perhaps it should be acknowledged as a healthy counterreaction to the unsustainable change that saved Europe from untold more bloodshed and suffering. It established a Congress system that in some ways preceded the EU at a time when international meetings were incredibly uncommon, and outlined a political framework for foreign relations that stressed the necessity for a balance of power, a concept that remains intensely crucial to our world today. While we might be a modern society centered around progress, we are also very much a society of back in the good old days, no matter how good or not so good those days really were. Either way, it is doubtless that we have come to understand the consequences of rapid change and innovation without foresight. Annalie is telling me that I must inform you this video has been incredibly biased. Wait, hold up. We're not supposed to tell him it's biased. This has not been Crash Course European History. I'm not John Green, and thank you for watching.